Okay, so Wolves play Newcastle tomorrow at 3 o'clock on Saturday in what feels like, for me, the perfect game to switch to a back four for Bruno Lage. It feels like something he's wanted to do for a while, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to do it. Like, I'll go into why in a minute but regarding Newcastle, but it feels like this is inevitable. He started it in pre-season with this 4-4-2, and I feel like everyone's back now, bar basically Pedro Neto and Johnny, and Newcastle's the perfect game. We've got some wins on the board now. There's less pressure. For me, this is the perfect game going into an international break to kind of get the squad used to back four and then work on it. Um, I don't have an issue if he plays a back three. If he goes with that kind of back five that he always does, I don't have an issue with it. Assuming Rene Nuri comes in, just because I think it would make it way more interesting to watch. But personally, I'd go for a back four in this game. I'd bring Bolly back in as well. No dig on Connor Cody. I think he's been perfectly fine this season, but I think you want him in a back two with Kilman. And I would, don't I prefer Eight Nuri to Marcel every day of the week. But if you're going to switch to a back four, I think you want Marcel in there, just for a bit of continuity, a bit of experience in that back four. He's more used to that position. And he might even play Eight Nuri left wing. Remember he did that in pre-season where he kept playing Marcel and Eight Nuri together. Um, but if we did play this kind of 4-4-2, I'd bring Dendoncker in just for a bit of defensive work rate and physicality. Obviously, you'd have a Dharma and Potential on the wings, and then probably Huang and Jimenez up top. Although I would like to see Trincao kind of play off the forward because I don't think he's quick enough to play out wide. Um, but I think Newcastle are interesting because when you look at Newcastle, they've played a back five basically the whole of this season, and then last week against Watford, they drew 1-1 obviously, but they kind of switched this. I didn't watch the game, but it was kind of like a 4-3-3 right or a 4-2-3-1, and it was a lot of look. I know that a lot of people don't rate Joe Linton or Almiron or whatever, but and obviously Saint Maximin and Willock, but they're all very quick guys. They're all useful, right? Um, and I don't really know what Steve Bruce is going to do because they had a lot of shots and it kind of worked for them. I thought they were the better side in that game from the highlights I saw. So maybe that would change Bruno Lage's thinking a bit, but I don't think Newcastle are like an incredible side. They're below us in the league. They haven't won a game yet. There's more pressure on Newcastle to come out. To be fair, they scored 7 goals to be fair to Newcastle. They scored four more than us, but conceded 14, which is why I think we should play with a back four. Put an extra attack on the pitch. Newcastle are under pressure. We all know what St James's Park is like. They're ready to turn on Steve Bruce. He's the favourite to get sacked. Put the pressure on them. In terms of there's a thing. If you look at some of the numbers, I think there's a lot of things which suggest why we should play a back four. If you look at goalkeepers, for example, because I can't really pick out an individual goalkeeper because Newcastle have fielded 3 goalkeepers this term. They've played Dubravka, Freddie Woodman, and Cardalo. But in terms of post-shock expected goals against, they've got the worst goalkeeping statistics in the Premier League. Whether that's because they're chopping and changing or because their goalkeepers aren't good enough, who knows? But we might as well test them. By the way, Jose Sarr, our only goalkeeper this season, is second best. So big up Jose Sarr. But Newcastle are the worst in terms of their goalkeepers underperforming. So let's have some shots at them. And to be fair, Newcastle do have more shots than people think. If you look at shots per 90 in the Premier League, like they're basically the same as us. Even shots on target, they're above us. They're having more shots on target per 90 than us. So they do have shots in Newcastle. Like they do have some useful players. For me, I just look at that midfield of Hayden and Longstaff or Hayden and Shelby. There's just nothing to it, and that defense is gettable. And I think this is what sums it up. If you look at progressive passes in the Premier League, I'm not saying like Wolves are fifth, for example. Obviously we're not finishing a lot of those off, but we're getting in good areas and we're creating like high quality chances. Newcastle are bottom. And to be fair, Brentford are pretty low as well, and they did one over us. But Newcastle aren't getting into, they're not creating good areas. And when you look at that front line, Almiron's not really a creator, he's a good runner. Same with Joe Willock. Even when Joe Willock was really good last season and was banging them in, didn't really have good creative numbers. He's more of a second striker. Joe Linton's never been creative. And Alan Saint-Maximin, again, he's a dribbler, he's not really a creator, right? So I think we can, again, from a Wolves point of view, risk this back four. Newcastle aren't creative. They're not like aerially dominant. They don't press a lot. So we might as well play this back four. For me, this is just the perfect game. And because of Newcastle's goalkeeping situation, their poor defence, everything that's going on at Newcastle right now, it's the perfect game to switch to a back four. And what was that? Oh yeah, and pressures as well. Again, they don't press. We've been playing a lot of sides recently in Southampton and Brentford and even kind of Tottenham to some extent that press a lot. Newcastle don't press. They're down there with like Burnley and the Manchester clubs. And obviously they don't really press because they're just big sides, right? And they don't have to. But Newcastle are a very basic side. They try and set up pretty deep and keep it functional. And they have loads of quick guys that they hope kind of just have a moment of magic. So look, I'm not saying Newcastle can't hurt us, and we have a pretty bad record against Newcastle. And, when we were speaking about the Southampton game, we kind of scraped that game, but I spoke in this preview, I didn't think Southampton was the right game to switch to back four, just because of how they press. By the way, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. But that Southampton game was not the game to switch to it. This Newcastle game, everything about this Newcastle game, to me, just says switch to the back four. Obviously, I think we would concede if we do that, just because it would be basically a 4-on-4, and they do have a lot of pace, and they probably will create chances based on their other games. But it feels like if Bruno Lage does want to switch to a back four, he's kind of got to do it, not got to do it now, because maybe he'll work on it over the international break. But if I'm Bruno Lage and looking at this, I'm thinking we'll probably beat Newcastle anyway, because we've done a good job of beating the bad sides. Like, we've had two kind of average opposition, really, if you don't include Brentford. If Watford and Southampton are the two, in quote, bad sides we've played, and we've dealt with them pretty easily. I don't think we were good against Southampton, but Southampton didn't really create anything against us. And to me, as I said before, this game just feels like the stars have aligned. Play a back four, you can kind of see what goes wrong and what goes right, and then you can work over it on the international break. And then you've got the derby, and Bruno Lage can look at it and go, okay, either that didn't work and we can't work on it and we switch to the back five, or get it ready for that Villa game, because that's the biggest derby game we've got this season, because West Brom got relegated. So for me, if you do play it, play Hwang off Jimenez, or even Daniel Podence off Jimenez if you want, and then maybe play Reinae Nuri on the left wing. If Bruno Lage wants to be a bit more conservative, maybe play Reinae Nuri. I wouldn't have an issue with that. I would bring Willy Boly back in as well. But that would be my lineup. If we go for back five, I still think we'll win, regardless of whatever we do. I'll go. I don't know. We're gonna score loads of goals eventually. I'll go 3-1. I think Newcastle will score just because they do have dangerous players. Whether they actually do anything or not, who knows? But there's a lot of pace there, and we don't really do well against pace. So we'll probably concede a goal, but I think we will win this game. And I'm excited to see the team lineup. It might be boring, and it might just be the normal back five. And it'll probably just be a bit of a boring 3 o'clock game. But if he does go to a back four, I think it'll be really interesting. And yeah, hopefully we get 9 points on the board. And if we go into this game or after this game and we can look at the Premier League table and go, you know what, we've got 9 points, I think a lot of people would take that, to be honest. 9 points after a pretty hard start to the season. 3 wins, 4 losses. Yeah, I think everyone would take that. Probably positive goal difference. Yeah, that's just what I think about the Newcastle game. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel, like the video. I'll have a review of the game after we've won. And yeah, peace.